On today's show,
Russell Baldwin, who was AD who hired me and still our AD now, he told me after the fact, he said one of the big motivating factors in that hire wasn't my record, obviously, but it was the fact that a lot of Valley Center parents had taken the time to email him and
wow.
and kind of, say that I might be in that situation at Derby, that they thought I would be very successful and that I had done right by their kids.
It is another one of those exciting times of the year. State's boys swimming took place this past weekend. We got state wrestling coming up this weekend. Sub-state basketball is already underway for some classifications. State basketball is right around the corner. Like I said, it's an exciting time of the year. And no, I'm not going to do it again. But we have our guests today, Davis Carson, Rielyn Wurtz, and Trey Weber, all from Rielyn County boys basketball team, on the show today, talking about some of their favorite highlights of their high school careers so far. Brett Flory, head coach of the Derby boys basketball team. He'll sit down and talk some basketball with us about his team a little bit, but also just the grand scheme of basketball and where it's at in the state of Kansas. Jeff Bollig with the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame, the chairman, will talk about an unbreakable record, and that will go to the boys' career points scoring record in the state set by Semi Ojale out of Ottawa not too far long ago. And then Trent Bright with Hodgeman County girls basketball coach. He'll be talking about his Lady Longhorn team toward the end of the show. It is Kansas Sports Chatter, a statewide high school sports entertainment show streaming on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Cole Rife. Let's get to it. It's our leadoff question. It's today's leadoff question with Davis Carson, a member of the Rielyn County basketball team. And Davis, your question today, what's your favorite highlights of your high school career so far?
So far, my senior year has been pretty good, but I think the highlight would be it was last Friday. I had a 28-point game against Hiawatha. So I think that would probably be it.
What stood out about that game? Like, what was feeling so good during that game for you?
Honestly, just my shots were feeling well. Everything in the paint was just going in for me. So yeah, I took almost all my shots. I took 1 3 and luckily went in, but all my shots were in the paint and just felt good. What
was the mindset before that game? Like, were you feeling good in warm-ups?
Yes, I was feeling good, and we had a few guys that were sick and some guys that were returning from being sick. So, and I was one of the only ones that were healthy. So it was kind of like I just have to kind of do it for my guys and play well.
What was your previous career high, do you know?
It was 18 earlier in the season against Sabetha.
So for you, like in your role throughout your career, like has it always been a score? Like how has your role kind of evolved throughout your career?
From high school, I started out kind of just facilitating, kind of just rebounding and passing mainly. And then close to my junior and senior year, I got more minutes and then started getting all my buckets pretty much in the paint and just kind of just scoring there.
All right. So out of those 28 points, was there one specific highlight that was the best?
Yeah, definitely. I had an and one that I was kind of falling on the ground. I tripped on a guy and then he fouled me and chucked it up over my head and it went in.
Nice. Davis Carson with Rielyn County basketball with our leadoff question. Leadoff question with Rielyn Wurtz, a member of the Rielyn County basketball team. And Rielyn, the question today, what's your favorite highlights of your high school career so far?
I would say it pretty well started junior and senior year, just kind of accepting the unique role that I have in like the team. I'm not really a flashy scorer or, like super pretty basketball player, I guess is what you'd say. I'm more of like a defensive guy, get rebounds, dive on the floor type of deal. So I would say overall I just accepting that role is probably my best attribute situation. So yeah.
Yeah. Did you kind of know like going into your junior, now your senior year, like kind of what you needed to do for the team?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I've never been able to, like, I'm not a flashy scorer by any means. You can ask anybody, so I kind of knew that was going to have to happen for sure.
All right, so you mentioned like rebounds. Like, how much pride do you take in just grabbing rebounds?
For sure. It takes a lot, and it takes a lot of effort to go up there and do the dirty work, but I find it fun. So,
how much have you worked on your game throughout your high school career?
Quite a bit. Us and the guys just hanging out in the gym constantly, going to the rec and all kinds of stuff. So it's been fun with the boys.
Any games that have stood out in your high school career that you really enjoyed?
Playing Rossville, just kind of the rivalry. I mean, any of those teams is just fun to always go up against, and it's going to be a good game no matter how good either team is. It's always going to be a good game.
Any specific highlights that stand out in those matchups with Rossville?
Not really for me. I know, what was it, sophomore year? Trey Weber, you're about to interview him. He had a bunch of points against Rossville. That was probably my best. That was cool to watch.
That is Rielyn Wurtz, a member of the Riley County basketball team, with our leadoff question. Leadoff question brings in a Trey Weber, a member of the Riley County basketball team. Trey, the question: what's your favorite highlights of your high school career so far?
Yeah, just going back to sophomore year against Rossville, I had 7 threes in a game.
7 threes. All right, so is that still your career high?
No, I had my junior year. I had 27 also against Rossville.
Whew,
But
okay.
7's the most I've ever had.
So have you always been a good outside shooter? When did that come about?
Yeah, going back to middle school, I'd say I was shooting the ball basically from anywhere.
How deep is your range?
Pretty far out there, I'd say.
So you feel like once you cross half court, you're feeling pretty good?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so going back to that 7 3-point game, like what was were they open looks? Like how did things come about?
Yeah, I just started close to the line, just making the normal shots, and then I ended the first quarter with my 5th three, with a buzzer beater from half court.
So like when you see like defenses now, obviously probably the scouting report is out. Like what are defenses like against you in your career?
Basically, I feel like a lot of game plans against me are just running me off the line or trying to make me shoot from deeper than I'm more comfortable with. But yeah.
How much, like, I guess, pride do you kind of take in your conditioning and trying to, continue to run throughout games just to make sure you do get open for your shot?
I take a lot of pride in that. Just running up and down the floor and trying to get up to the open spot.
Do you have a favorite 3 that you made? Was there anyone that stands out?
Not particularly, I wouldn't say, but a couple buzzer beaters I've had.
So any specific highlights that you've rewatched? Maybe that 7 3-point game. Have you rewatched that game?
Yeah, definitely.
That is Trey Weber, a member of the Riley County basketball team, with our leadoff question. Riley County Falcons represented on the show today, thanks to Davis Carson, also Rielyn Wurtz and Trey Weber, all from Riley County, joining us here for our leadoff question. The sponsors, Barton Community College. Check out the website, bartoncccc.edu. They're always enrolling for classes. Eastis Media, all things broadcasting. Media, you got it. You got to check out Eastis Media, the voice of the Pratt High Greenbacks. Meyers Enterprises, bring your business into the 21st century with Meyers Enterprises. SPX LED video walls. Get one installed in your high school gym with their specialized video wall solutions. And Wheatland Electric, let them help you survey, install, and finance a new backup home generator. We'll take a break. When we come back, longtime Derby head coach Brett Flory of the boys basketball team. He is on the show next. SPX Specialized Video Wall Solutions. Your gym needs SPX. Welcome back on the show for Kansas Sports Chatter as we bring in our next guest, and that is going to be Brett Flory. He is the head coach of the Derby High School boys basketball team. Coach, thanks for coming on. And, man, playing some good ball right now for the Derby Panthers. What has stood out during this hot stretch for you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cole. Appreciate it. We started off not very good. We were 2-4 at the break. We'd played some good teams. We went up to the Husky Hoops Classic and lost a close one to Blue Valley Northwest there, beat Shawnee Mission Northwest there, but then got beat by Staley, Missouri, who's always one of the premier teams on the Missouri side in the Kansas City area. Came back, lost a pretty close one with Mays at home, and then lost by 4 on the road at Mays South. So things weren't looking very good for a while, but we kind of went to war at practice over the break. Got after each other pretty well. Made a little lineup adjustment. We ended up putting a freshman in the starting lineup, which really helped clean up our rebounding and kind of allowed everybody to get into their natural positions. And so been fortunate now. We've won 12 of our last 13 since then, and we're pretty close in the one that we didn't get against Heights. And then we guess what? We got only 4 regular season games left now, so coming down the stretch.
Getting down to crunch time. When you go into a stretch like you did, like early on in the season, I mean, and like you said, like you played really good teams. Like, so for you as a coach, like how hard is it to like not to hit the panic button, but to like make big changes or realize, hey, that's just early part of the season type of jitters. I don't know. Like how do you kind of judge that as a coach?
Yeah. We're kind of used to that here, really, because oftentimes our football team advances and some of our players we've had for less than a week by the time they're playing their first game. So that is a factor in some slow starts around here sometimes. That said, though, we took those 3 extra games that we had this year, which really, love having that opportunity. And I wanted to challenge us as much as I possibly could in the early season and to get a sense of where we're at. We had a really good team last year, it was 21-2, but we graduated, 5 senior starters from that group. And so this was a brand new team, everybody in brand new roles. And so wanted to see what we had. And Coach Heim was kind enough to invite us up to the Husky Hoops Classic. And like I said, played 3 very good teams there. And then it just so happened that we came back to play the 2, top teams in our league right after that. But I'm the type of coach I'd much rather take some lumps early and learn about yourself and figure out, okay, where are our deficiencies? Where do we need to get better? And that was definitely exposed at that time. And the streak that we're on now has been a direct result of kind of going through that process.
You mentioned the 3 extra games added to the regular season schedule. It seems like you're in favor of it, but you feel like it's in a good spot right now with the 23 games. Would you tweak it at all right now?
I'm crazy, so I would say 25 might be an optimal number. I know some people are, kind of up and down about the way it is now, but at 23, my thought is, kind of leave it up to the schools. If you want to only play 20, play 20. But if you want to and can find 25, play 25. All I know is I'm sitting here looking at, the Missouri, state champions, and they played 30 games a lot of times, maybe more. So I don't think it's unreasonable to potentially do that. But and I also understand that they're big school, small school. There's probably a difference there too. If I'm at Derby, so that's big school. Kids want to play big games and play as many games as they can, and that might not be the right scenario for a 2A school or whatever, and that's fine. But it's nice to have the option to do it, I think, if you can and you want to. And so we love it. Like I said, I was just such a first-class tournament. Blue Valley Northwest ran up there. It was unbelievable. They, paid for the out-of-town teams to stay at a hotel. They paid for all our meals. It was such a first-class deal that they ran up there. And even though we got our tails kicked a little bit, it was a great experience for our team.
For you, like the big pro of kind of extending it maybe and allowing extra games, is it more so to just get extra reps and get more game experience, or what's like the biggest pro for you?
I think there's different ways you could go with it. Some coaches have tried to schedule 3 wins. That's not the way that we went with it. I wanted to do it early, and I wanted to get those tests early. I wanted to go into Christmas break knowing this is what we're good at, but this is also where our deficiencies are, and we know what we need to work at to have a chance to be the team that we want to be by the time March rolls around. And so to me, that was the big purpose, just to be able to get a few more games in early, to kind of get a read on where we're at. And then from that point on, hopefully get better and move forward.
You mentioned playing a couple of those conference teams early on in the season, and you're going to get your second chance at them. How much do you enjoy just the home and away? I guess there's some conferences that do have that, but then there's also some that, you only get to play each other maybe one time. So how much do you enjoy that home and away?
It's great. Love it. And the AVCTL has grown so much in basketball over my years now. So this year, 15 at Derby for me, and that kind of makes me the old head in the league now. Coach Grill retired at Mays, although I wouldn't be surprised to see him get back in it at some point once Alec is done playing in college. But and all of a sudden I'm looking around, and I've been around here a lot longer than everybody else has, it seems like, at least in Division I. But over those 15 years, though, when I first got here, it was football league. That's what it was good at. That's what it was known for. Basketball, it was kind of considered, an afterthought. And it has just progressively gotten better and better, not just Division I, but Division II on down Division III and IV, to where now you have multiple state tournament teams every year in every division, and teams that are competing and winning state championships. And, we haven't been able to get all the way to get that last championship win yet. That's what we're striving for, but we've been in the conversation along with several other teams in our league that have consistently been in that conversation and even have won. So, but back to the home and home, I think that's what when you can do a round robin home and home, that gives you a true champion of your league each year, and that's always a fun thing to chase. And when you get into February, it's been a long season. You want to have a carrot for kids to put in front of them. And, if you have a chance to pursue a league championship, it doesn't mean a lot necessarily in terms of where you're trying to go in March, but it's meaningful in February for motivation for sure.
Talking with Brett Flory, head coach of the Derby High School boys basketball team. You say old head. I mean, I think that's just experience. Like I think the name is like veteran coach.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we're 47 now. So I know I'm not one of the young guys anymore. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago that I was, but yeah, it's myself, Coach Blue at Eisenhower. We're in Division I and II. I think the both of us. We were just talking the other night that, gosh, like we're the old guys now, and we're coaching against Zach at Mays now, who Coach Blue coached him, of course, in high school, and I coached against him his senior year at Eisenhower, and Trey O'Neill at Andover, who I coached against. And I remember he was a sophomore at Scott City. We played them in the Dodge City tournament. So it's great seeing these young guys come along, but it does start to make me feel my ears a little bit.
We'll go back to 2011 when you first took over the Derby program as head coach. What was that? Just getting the reins of the offense, if you will.
Yeah, that it was a neat thing because I've been the coach at Valley Center for 6 years, and we didn't have a lot of success really in terms of wins and losses, and things hadn't gone the way that I hoped there, but we had worked as hard as we possibly could. The kids that we had there, they did everything they possibly could to win, and worked very hard for me, and love those guys to death to this day that played for me at VC. But at the end of the day, we weren't winning games, and the Derby job comes open, and I'm not really thinking that there'd be any realistic chance of me possibly getting that job at that point. But few people said, "Hey, why not?" You don't know if you don't try. And the cool thing about it, I think I learned a lesson then. If you try and do right by kids and treat people right, that can come back and be reciprocated. Russell Baldwin, who was AD who hired me and still our AD now, he told me after the fact, he said one of the big motivating factors in that hire wasn't my record, obviously, but it was the fact that a lot of Valley Center parents had taken the time to email him and
Wow.
and kind of, say that I might be in that situation at Derby, that they thought I would be very successful and that I'd done right by their kids and stuff like that. So, that meant so much. And Tim Hamlin, Russell Baldwin, they took a gamble. And I know a lot of people back then at that time, remember some of the talk radio shows in Wichita at the time, there's a lot of head scratching when that hire was made, which is understandable, frankly, based on my record, but at that time, we sometimes you just get the right fit, the right person, the right place, the right time. And, Derby's been perfect for me and my situation. And hopefully we've been pretty good for Derby too.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. You talk about, now, like you said, 15 years as head coach. And I always think about like building a system and putting it in place. And sometimes it's going to change based on your personnel. But how nice is it now with that experience and just the years that you've been there that, like kids that are growing up through the Derby system, if you will, like they know what to expect when they get to the high school.
Yeah, that's a huge piece that we try to accomplish. We do have a certain style of play that we believe in. And we have our Panther Basketball Academy that we start with our third graders. I work with our third through fifth graders for a time period in the spring, then again in the summer, then again in the fall. Then we take our sixth, seventh, eighth graders right after them. Same thing, spring, summer, fall. We work with our middle school coaches, trying to be on the same page with our seventh and eighth grade teams, of course. And that's one thing that's unique about Derby. That is a large school, but it's still one community. It's if you're a directional school, it's a little bit more difficult to accomplish that because you might not know exactly which kids are coming your way. Whereas in Derby, you have Derby North, Derby Middle, and they're both coming to you. And so that's I think a big advantage. Coach Clark on the football side has taken advantage of that for years. There's not a bigger junior football program ever, probably, than Derby junior football is. The wrestling program has had a junior wrestling program forever, which has led to a lot of success for them. It's a little bit more difficult on the basketball side because you have, AAU teams and your best players are going to want to play on traveling teams and stuff like that. So we don't necessarily have, this is our third grade team or our fourth grade team or whatever. But at the academy, I do at least get those kids in. We learn the system. They learn me. I learn them. And that really helps.
All right. So you mentioned, you have some time with those third through fifth graders. Like, are you scouting those kids out at that point, realizing, this kid's going to be pretty good at about 5?
That's the goal. You want to kind of, see as much as possible who your studs are going to be and start that development as early as you can. And if they can come in ninth grade, knowing the system, knowing your terminology, knowing the way that you coach and kind of the culture of your program, that really helps. It doesn't always work that way. You don't get every single kid. There's still freshmen that make our freshman team that I've never worked with before, and that's fine too. But we'll go back to last year's team. Jack Olwelling was Player of the Year in our league, and I could show you pictures of this little guy in third grade with his Steph Curry jersey on at our stuff, and so he came to high school really knowing what he was doing, and the more kids that you can have doing that, the better.
A lot of studs come through those doors at Derby High School. Hey, Coach, appreciate the time and best of luck the rest of the season.
You bet. Thank you, Cole.
That is Brett Flory, the head coach of the Derby High School boys basketball team. We'll have more of the show after the break.
Power outages don't wait for a convenient time, and neither should you. Right now is the perfect season to invest in a standby generator from Wheatland Electric Cooperative. With low monthly payments and special financing for co-op members, reliable backup power is more affordable than you think. We'll help you survey, install, and finance a Generac standby generator, all with professional installation you can trust. Protect your home, your comfort, and your peace of mind before the next storm hits. Get a free quote today and make life without power a thing of the past. Visit us online or call us to get started today.
Sportsmanship is when people who are playing or watching a sport treat each other with respect. This is a reminder to be a good sport to your peers, coaches, opponents, fans, and the people officiating the game. Sporting events have a much better atmosphere when everyone involved is displaying good sportsmanship.
Moving right along here on Kansas Sports Chatter, as it is time to talk about some possibly unbreakable records, or just some of the most impressive records the state of Kansas has for high school athletics. And to help us out with the segment, it'll be Jeff Bollig. He is the chairman of the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Jeff, appreciate you coming back on the show. I like these segments just to kind of relive some of the records that were set either sometimes decades ago and sometimes not as long ago. And today's kind of one of those guys with a really good high school scoring record for high school boys basketball.
That's right. Semi Ojale from Ottawa from 2010 to 2013 scored 2,763 points, broke Josh Reed's record. Josh played out at Brewster and later Kansas State. And Semi, of course, his family moved over from Nigeria. His dad was a doctor. His mother was a nurse. And he was born in Overland Park. Semi was, and picked up the sport quickly. He had a brother, Victor, many people remember, played at Kansas State. But Semi was just a tremendous physical specimen. I mean, he dominated on the court, and of course, playing in 4A mainly, there weren't many people to stop him. So quite a scorer. And of course, he went on to Duke, and then later finished his career at SMU for Larry Brown and Tim Jagovich.
Well, I remember when he arrived at Duke and like just watching some of the early games, and when he would get in, and like he was by far the most athletic player on Duke's roster. Like, I mean, without a doubt, he didn't get as much playing time there, but you could just tell the freakish athletic ability right away.
Wow, he's like I said, so strong, a great wing, very good defender. Maybe not as polished offensively as some of those Duke players we hear about, but he had the build and the strength, and quite an athlete. And you kind of hate to see those kids leave the state, but at the same time, what a great opportunity it was for him. And credit to him, because sometimes you go somewhere and things don't pan out, and you transfer and you kind of don't hear about him again. But he became the Player of the Year in the AAC as a senior, averaged 18.9 points a game and about 7 rebounds. So credit to Semi for kind of rectifying his career. And obviously got drafted, played a few years in the NBA, and then he's now playing overseas.
When you look at that record for boys basketball in high school, the 2,763 set by Semi, in the 2010 and, right to 2013. So you look at the girls game, and we have multiple players that are over 3,000.
Yeah.
Obviously Jackie Stiles leading the way. But the 2,700 for boys. Like, what do you see the differences between boys and girls? Why there's such a discrepancy, I guess, for the high?
I don't know. I won't say that. Iowa and Oklahoma played 3-on-3 girls basketball. Some of your people may not remember, but you would play 3 people on a defensive end and 3 on an offensive end, and they didn't switch. So if you wanted the scoring record, you better play on the offensive end, right? Obviously, Kansas didn't do that. I don't know. Maybe it's just in the development of the sport. Maybe when, Title IX has helped women's basketball a lot. But in those early years, you may have had someone who's more dominant and kind of controlled the ball. Remind me of my watching my son's youth CYO days when maybe you had 1 or 2 players dominate on the team and they just had the ball the whole time. So maybe you could have an outstanding athlete and just dominate it more. And now as play has developed and more girls over time have been developed, it's much more of a team sport. That would be just off the top of my head, one reason why.
Yeah, and you talk about you mentioned like his ability to reemerge, and like not only when he transferred from Duke and then he went to SMU, like I mean he was stud. I mean, like you could tell he's just waiting for the right place at the right time, and he found that at SMU. Well,
and really with Brown and Jankovich's coaches, his style was perfect for them. That was an up-tempo team. Larry loved to get out and run, and having Semi with that athletic ability, he gave him the kind of keys to the car. And they also had some other very good players on the team, so they couldn't dedicate everything to semi. And that's one thing, obviously, in high school. If you are the only player on the team, you may see a lot of junk defenses and keep you down. But 27-63 is quite a scoring figure.
That's pretty good because I think he put up nearly 1,000 points his senior year. I think he was averaging like 37 or 38 points per game. So that's impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting. These young men, young ladies who are setting these career records. I remember I was in Lawrence at the time when Danny Manning was there, and the Lawrence High games were just packed. You couldn't get a ticket. I mean, people wanted to see him and see what he was doing. And I feel it's the same way Semi a little bit. He was, his record was coming, and there was such a buildup. And I remember reading one article that said that there was an extreme amount of pressure on him. He was feeling that. So good for him. It's good for Ottawa. Good to get that. They won state his senior year 25-0. I believe beat Highland Park, another good program. So. Again, I could see the record being broken, but still a lot of points. And, it took a while after Josh, got his number.
Big time. Jeff, appreciate the time and the insight.
Great to be with you. Thanks, Cole.
Jeff Bollig, the chairman of the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame, with our Unbreakable Record segment. Here's a hard truth. If your business isn't using AI in its marketing, you've already fallen behind. But there's an advertising agency in Kansas that can get you back up to speed. That agency's name is Meyers Enterprises Media Research. The name sounds dry because the company's run by engineers, not salespeople. They use superior research and analytics that drive results with surgical precision. Marketing doesn't have to be a gritty battle in the trenches. Your business can win from the box. Visit their website, mediaresearch.agency, to learn more. Kansas Sports Chatter brings in our next guest, and that is going to be Trent Bright. He is the head coach of the Hodgeman County girls basketball team. Coach, appreciate your time. You talk about, sub-state, like right in your face, just right around the corner. Like, what is this crunch time like for you?
Well, it is coming down to the end, and every year we start it, and I'm always like, basketball is a long season, drawn out. You have 2 breaks, but then all of a sudden here's the end, and here we go. It comes quicker than what we always think.
What is that grind like? Because I got to imagine, like, this time of the year, you're kind of rejuvenated. I imagine the team is too, because you can kind of see postseason right around the corner, like we mentioned. But like, what are those months like? Especially like January and early February, like.
Well, coming in back from January, coming off a break, you're energized, you're ready to go, and then all of a sudden you've gone through our tournament. And now we're into February, and it is a grind. You have to, especially we've got the 7 seniors this year, which is pretty rare, but it is a grind sometimes with that. And they know the end is coming, and it's just a mix of emotions, I would say, for them. They're excited that, now that we are turning towards the postseason, they're really excited for that. Seeing where we sit and where our teams we will be facing kind of gives them a little bit more motivation here at the end.
You mentioned the 7 seniors. Like, what has it been like just following their career paths over the last 4 years?
Well, this group of seniors, they've had a lot of wins for us for the program, and they've contributed a lot of time in the summer, a lot of time during the year. So, I'm just proud of them for sticking it out, and, we're ready to make this last push. Last year we were able to make the state tournament. Lost to a really good Lebo team, and the girls are ready to, all of them said at the beginning of the year, one of their goals was not only to get back, but to improve on last year's state tournament team.
Those 7 seniors, like, what were they like early on? Like, could you kind of see the maturation of them, over the last few years?
They were pretty good in junior high. They were really, and if you look at those 7 seniors, there's not really one that always is doing all the scoring. We're pretty balanced across the board with those 7. They're all pretty athletic, which is a plus. So, when they were younger, you could see it coming. So it was just able to add some things as we were going. They haven't always been able to score the ball that well, but, we've always defended well. And, that keeps us in a lot of games and gives us an opportunity to win a lot of games. And, that's probably the best thing that they have is they are athletic, and they do work pretty hard. Even on the practice side, for the most part, I've been very pleased with them throughout practices. Younger, freshman, sophomore age, they probably didn't really appreciate me as a coach because I was tough on them. I wanted to make sure that they were working hard and learning the way that we want to play it here at Hodgeman.
You mentioned that balance attack. I mean, I'm sure every coach would love to have, a player that averages 25 points a game. But, for you, do you kind of enjoy that balance attack and just even, when teams are trying to scout you?
Well, I would say, just from my experience scouting other teams, that would make it pretty tough. Because we always look at who is taking the shots, who is doing the scoring for the other teams, and we got certain people that guard certain positions. But looking down across ours here, we're all right about just at 10 or right below 10 points a game, and I would think that would make it tough. Again, for us to have that many at that spot, the only thing I would say is maybe sometimes we are kind of unselfish with the ball too much, but that's okay. We encourage the sharing of the basketball, and it's working.
That defensive mentality, I feel like I've had a lot of recent coaches that have come on and kind of emphasized that importance of defense, and I think we all know how important it is. But for you, what do you stress during practice and just when you're with the girls? What's the big thing you want to stress on defense?
The biggest thing we think about every single game is to try to hold teams under 40. That's our number. So that's the biggest thing for us. If you take a look at some of the games that we have lost, most of those games teams have been over 40. But, we've had some games this year where we haven't shot the ball very well. And, when you don't shoot the ball very well, you got to defend really, really well to have a chance. And these girls have done that every night. Again, I always tell them, we keep working on the shooting. It will come. So hopefully I'm not the one I don't want to feel like I'm lying to them, but it will come if they keep working at it. And they have been. And we like to, on the defensive end, they just, it's just something that they have in them. They're a physical team. They're not going to back down from very much. And that's easy as a coach when you have girls that play like that.
Trent Bright, head coach of Hodgeman County girls basketball, joining us here on the show. That state experience last year, getting to go to Colby and getting into that first round, what was that like for your girls, just being able to get back to the state tournament?
Well, that was fun. I'd never been in that arena before, and it's a really nice venue to play in. It was a great experience for these girls. We faced a really tough Lebo team, and they got us pretty good. And I'm kind of the type of person where I'm not a good loser. So I had not watched that game until right before we were starting this season. And I was able to go back and look at it. And, there was a turning point. We were really neck and neck through that first quarter. And about halfway through the second quarter, they kind of jumped out on us. So, we will always want to lean back on that. You have to learn from those experiences. And I think they have. And, being seniors and being motivated here to get back, hopefully we can rely on those experiences and get back to where we want to.
I mean, how much easier was it, even for your motivation? I mean, getting into the state tournament, like you said, having the 7 seniors now, I got to imagine, the season just had a lot of potential.
It kind of makes you nervous, though, because it's going to be a big gap after this year. We are losing the 7 seniors, and we have a pretty good younger group coming up, but you always think about that as you're going through the season, and maybe things aren't going the right way, and you're like, man, I could have done this different. But we just got to keep looking forward, keep moving forward. We're about to the end, and that can make some people nervous, and hopefully we can stay strong and stay together. The girls have been doing a very good job of that, and as far as a coach being thinking about that is, I'm just proud of these girls, appreciative of being able to coach a group like this, being able to stay with 7 seniors. It is kind of a blessing to be able to do that. So, yeah.
Well, you mentioned the youth. What has it been like building that youth program up in the Jetmore area? Have you seen an even bigger interest in just basketball in general?
Like I said, let's see. So this is like I said, 7th year of coaching girls basketball. So we have been to the state tournament like 3 out of the last 5 years, and you do see a growth. You do see an interest. We do have 18 out at a smaller 1A school, and just going through the season, there's a lot of times we don't get full JV games, and so that kind of makes you proud as a coach that these girls want to be a part of it and they want to play. And hopefully those numbers stay strong as we keep moving forward. Just seeing some of the youth teams, we do have good numbers on there too. So that is exciting for us.
You used to coach the boys team at Hodgeman County, and now, like you said, that your 7th year with the girls. I know there's some obvious things, but what were the main differences for you as a coach in your approach, just going from the boys game to the girls game?
Well, I would say, before I got into coaching girls, before I even thought about doing it, I reached out to some very successful girls coaches. I'm not really going to say the names, but, I did ask them, what's the biggest difference? What's the one thing I need to concentrate on coaching at the girls side? And the main thing I got from all 3 of them was they talked about, just being able to build the team together. And, so we adapted from John Gordon, the we over me thing. And, that kind of helps us. We always refer back to that. I asked the girls this year if they wanted to change the back of their shirts, and they all said no. So, we've kept with that. Hopefully we can keep with that. So that kind of helps us with the 7 strong on the senior side, that they do work together. They do play well together. And so that's always fun to watch.
Team chemistry, I think that's noted in like any sport, coach, like where, you got to have that team chemistry to play better. But like sometimes you're like, oh, okay, is that just coach speak? Like you're in the trenches, like, it. Like, I mean, have you seen teams that maybe weren't as good, like, didn't necessarily, I don't want to say they didn't get along, but they weren't as close off the court, and then the differences between when they are close off the court?
Yeah, sometimes they can put that aside. You can have teams that maybe don't get along off the court and they can do it on the court. But a lot of times I always feel like, if they can get along off the court, it almost seems like it's much easier on the floor. And that comes from communicating on the floor to almost, having each other's back as you go through the season's grind. And, maybe you don't always agree with the coach. And, I'm sure they don't always agree with some of the stuff, but, they always stick together. And that's a good thing to see.
Coach, appreciate the time. Best of luck the rest of the season.
Hey, thank you. We appreciate your coverage.
That is Trent Bright, head coach of the Hodgeman County girls basketball team. We'll have more of the show right after the break. Are you looking for a new way to promote your business or organization? Do you want to get your message out to a statewide audience that loves high school sports in both urban and rural areas? Kansas Sports Chatter has advertising opportunities from commercials, sponsoring specific guests, product placements, and even a premier sponsorship. Let Kansas Sports Chatter promote your brand. Contact ksportschatter@gmail.com for more advertising details. That's ksportschatter@gmail.com. Come join the chatter. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Kansas Sports Chatter. You can help us out by liking and subscribing on YouTube. Follow us on social media. And if you're a business looking to do some advertising to an audience that loves high school sports, you can hit us up with any advertising opportunities at ksportschatter@gmail.com. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday with episodes coming out Tuesday and Thursday for Kansas Sports Chatter.